Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar on modern cybersecurity. We're really thrilled and amazed on the number of attendees attending this webinar, which really proves that modern cybersecurity is a hot topic. Together with me, I've got these two fantastic guys, Lars and Gijs. Lars used to be known as a former hacker. Is that correct?
That's correct. I used to be hired by companies to find their weaknesses and then show them and then find a way to resolve the issue. I will also be talking today about the fact and the myths about what hacking really means and how it really looks and how we can prevent it.
Very cool. I guess, what experience can you share with us?
Yeah, I used to be Chief Information Security Officer at several companies, and I've seen security in practice and how to do or how to implement a modern cybersecurity strategy in these companies. And I'm happy to share some of my thoughts and my insights on this today in this webinar.
Very cool, and that is what we're heading for. Myself, I'm Steph. I'm a general manager at Cyber Contracts. I'm a cyber insurance expert. So cyber insurance is basically what we do. Let's dive into the first topic together. So, how real is the risk today? Let me go to the next slide. Yeah. Let's start with some undeniable facts. One of the first undeniable facts to start with is that change is the only constant throughout times. I guess we can all agree on that. If you see the attendees attending a LAN party have to worry about how to squeeze in their pizzas while playing mind-dazzling games, it's a totally different kind of a thing than the people living in the Stone Age that were busy inventing the wheel or burning their fingers on something later called fire. Times have changed. While against in that same comparison, you see the people living in the Stone Age had to conquer physical creatures like the mammoths, which really required a different skill set than the cyber crime that we have to face today. We can see actually the line between reality and fiction blurring by deepfake videos, convincing people to pay $25 million. And that is the reality that we live in today. So the threats have always been there, but they were different back in the Stone Age in comparison with today, obviously. And if we look at today's reality, I guess it's a safe statement to state that our lives depend on software. Almost everything that we do in our daily lives, professionally and personally, depend on the usage of software. And the usage of software implies risks. Think about how software is being developed. What developers really like to do is reuse existing components. So they search around for components exposing certain functionality that they can embed in their software. But how is that component developed? How secure is that component? And what other components is that specific component using? So it's an exponential growth of possible weaknesses in that software. Think about the Log4j issue a couple of years ago that had a massive impact on software companies using that specific component because it had so many open doors. And therefore, cybersecurity can be a very broad, technical, also functional kind of subject. I like to compare with the classical doors and windows that we know how to close from our buildings, our offices, our houses. We all know the concept of keys and badges and alarm codes, whereas in the digital world, there is a massive multitude of digital doors and digital windows. Think about scrolling in the evening on your laptop. The content that you get on the screen is passing certain points from your laptop to the access point, to the router, to the ISP provider, to the destination ISP, protocols, software providers, etc. That's, again, a multitude of possible weaknesses in those digital doors and windows. So in that sense, it's very hard to understand because we do not know all of those doors, let alone how to close them. And for that, we need the expertise, obviously. With that, human as the weakest link. They use the software, they use the hardware that expose vulnerabilities. But humans, they really act as the weakest link. Today, we also see that in the cases arising, that humans are typically the initiation point of a possible data breach, of installment of ransomware, and so on. And that is basically due to the fact that many of us think it won't happen to us. The hackers, they will search their money at the bigger companies, at the large enterprises. Those are typically the companies that really invest in cybersecurity. Still, the hackers manage to get in. So you can imagine how easy it must be for a hacker to enter an SMB that is not really being occupied by cybersecurity. And it's also the perception we live in a world where convenience rules. We need everything now, we need it today, and it needs to be very easy. So whatever you're bothering me with MFA and password managers, that's really a hard thing to do. So there is a lot of obstruction in becoming a safer organization. And in that sense, I like the quote that amateurs, they hack systems, and the professionals, they really attack people. And with that, we're actually welcoming cybercriminals on a red carpet. All the digital doors are open for them to enter, whether it's through hardware, software, or the human acting as the weakest link. And think about the acceleration that the entire AI story implies. Fraud GPT, Worm GPT. The modern criminal clown is sitting in his sofa extorting companies just by paying a 200 subscription for a ransomware as a service software. Think about the growth in IoT devices. There are so many open doors in IoT devices you cannot imagine. It is predicted that by the end of 2030, we're reaching 25 billion IoT devices spread all over the world. And I even think that is a pessimistic kind of a number. Imagine the number of open doors, the vulnerabilities that those devices can possibly expose. And we see that usually there is not a lot of security budget allocated up until the moment that things go wrong, obviously. Then all of a sudden there is a budget allocation if the company manages to do so, because numbers show that in Belgium, 65% of the small and medium businesses attacked by ransomware go bankrupt within 6 months. And that is because of the fact that the recovery phase in such an incident is so heavy. Let's bust some myths. Cybersecurity costs nothing but money. I do not see any benefit investing in cybersecurity. There is nothing to gain here. Well, obviously, the contrary is true. You can easily calculate the return on investment on your cybersecurity strategy just by doing a test. Just shut down your systems after the webinar, please, for 2 days and calculate the costs. How are you going to work? What are you going to do with your employees? What about the communication to your customers, your suppliers? And that cost does not involve ransomware, does not involve the experts that you need in order to overcome a ransomware incident. So that already gives you a very good idea. So it is perfectly measurable. Although it's a bit under the hood, you gain success in cybersecurity when something is not happening. And that's a bit of the paradigm. And in that sense, the cost of a cybersecurity strategy is really a fraction from an incident cost. Such an incident can really go quite expensive. That is what I think about cybersecurity, and specifically also cyber insurance. It's very expensive. Well, I can tell you it's surely not. We actually see a very big discrepancy between the insurance of a company's leader car against the business continuity. Some of the company owners, their car is better insured than their business continuity. And that is something that we need to step off to, of course. 100% sure does not exist. When things go wrong, you want to be helped, and that is where we come in. Some real life examples that show that. The first story is about a broker, and one of the employees received an email. They asked for a proposal. It had an attachment Obviously, opening the attachment installs a virus, a ransomware. The week continues, and then on the Friday, you will hear that typically those type of attacks happen on Friday. All the computers were locked, same message on the screen. You have to pay 5 Bitcoin, you have 69 hours to do so, and then we will release your systems again. That involves a lot of things. There is panic, first of all. What do we need to do? Who is going to help us? Are we going to the shop to buy some laptops and so on? In this case, we were heading for a total cost of 140K, which is for a small company a massive amount, obviously. Now, what happens in such a case is that our customers are able to call the hotline 24/7. They will assess the situation. They will do the incident management. They will appoint IT forensic services. They will appoint the legal services in order to help you getting over that incident as soon as possible. So that is the reactive part. And then later on, the recovery part, obviously. Production company, a mail from a trusted supplier. And in this case, the hackers logged into the email system. They were following the email communication for 4 months. When the principal accountant went on holiday and the backup took over, that's where they hit. They were referring to an existing invoice with the correct amount, just a different account number. And that is what happened. So they were really taking their time to attack in this case. The consultancy firm, different offices, all of a sudden each printer of each office rolled out the same kind of no escape ransomware, everything locked. Same kind of way of working. Customer was able to call the hotline, IT forensics, and in this case we had some difficulties working with the existing IT partner. Was he afraid of something? We don't know, but we needed the legal help in order to get that partner moving. And this is one of the cases that I called the owner during the weekend, and he said, yes, we're in big problems, but I was so happy that I was being helped. If this would have happened without the insurance, I wouldn't have known what to do. Which IT company should I call on a Friday evening? Which legal advisor is going to help me? And that is really key. And then the last story, the wholesaler. In this case, it was no ransomware whatsoever, but the virus entered via an USB device. You cannot imagine, but it still happens today. We also saw that on fact checkers a while ago. A USB stick was entered, nothing on it, in the recycle bin, but behind the scenes, a virus was installed. And in this case, the hacker, the cybercriminal, was actually ordering things themselves. So they discovered, because of the fact that the different orders were not getting paid, obviously, but like this, you can see that it doesn't really imply ransomware only, obviously. Right, so that's my first part of the story. Talking about hackers, I'll introduce you again to Lars, who will now show real life what it is all about.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Steve, for the intro. I want to remind everybody, if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We will have a QA session at the end, but if you don't get to all questions, we'll answer them by email, so everybody has as much information as possible. So as by introduction, I used to do this for work. I used to break into systems to showcase what's possible. I will be going over the fact and the fiction. I'll be live showing how hacks actually work, how it looks. I just want to remind everybody, disclaimer, we live in a connected world. We're doing this in a very isolated setup to keep everybody safe, to keep everything working. Don't try this at home. This is for educational purposes. We don't do fear-mongering. Every time we show something, 2 slides further, we'll go over exactly how you can prevent it. So to keep it all positive and constructive. Cool. So the first type of cyber attack is about passwords. Specifically, a password, very important. It proves that you are you. It proves that you have access to a certain account. Now, for different reasons, those passwords get abused. Sometimes they get guessed. So it's a very easy password. That's why we say, hey, choose a difficult password that's difficult to guess. Now, something else also happens, and that's actually you have a secure password and you are using it on your services, and very nice. But then that service gets breached. Breached means for some reason, there are a couple of famous examples, Hotmail, LinkedIn, for example, where we're streaming this now. They got a lot of their data leaked, including their passwords. And unfortunately, this happens a lot, which means that actually a lot of these passwords get exposed online. And you actually have a full list, and there's a lot of these passwords that hey, this is a password that the person uses. And then if you use this password on multiple services, you will actually make it possible. If I find your password online, I will just try it on all the accounts that are out there. I just try it out, and maybe I get lucky. You can also do this for an organization. Just use the suffix of your email and try it out. Now, how this actually looks is actually online. I was challenged recently internally, hey, in 15 minutes, find the database online. You go using some network protocol, you go to the deep web, you go on a forum, you can actually find these databases. These are giant databases of just email, password, and you just try all these passwords out. Very cheap. Often they are just available online, they're leaked themselves, or they cost about 50 euros. So it's a very important one that you should always remember. You can actually go to a website. It's haveibeenpwned.com. It's made by Troy Hunt, and you can actually type in your email, and he will say, hey, your password or passwords related to this email has been leaked. Now, very easily, if you use an old email, there will be some services. The important thing is that, hey, did I change my password since then? And actually, what I would recommend is even better. Please use unique passwords, because if you use a unique password, this is not possible at all. So as our first recommendation, this just happens. Use multi-factor authentication, which means that there is another authentication factor next to your password that you need to have or need to prove that you own. And then also use different passwords for every service. And actually the best tip that I can give is please use a password manager. It's way more safe to use good encryption protocols so that it's possible for you in a safe way to use unique passwords for every account. Using this also prevents phishing a bit, because you only can input. Password manager will automatically input your information on your screen, and it will only input it on the right domains. So you prevent from inputting your domains on your credentials on a wrong domain, which is pretty nice. So for our second attack, it's a very famous, it's the most Hollywood-esque one. There were a lot of names for it: RCE, ransomware, getting hacked. It's the case when, indeed, as Steph described, it's a way that a hacker remotely can take over your machine. This happens because software sometimes has vulnerabilities. There's small mistakes in it, and it constantly gets updated, but those mistakes happen. And especially with how much the world is connected now and how many pieces of software we have, it's very difficult to make sure that they're all flawless and they're all perfect. So software will have these mistakes present. It happens, they get exposed every day. Now, what I will show you today is how such a hack actually happens. How can we take over, for example, this happened yesterday with Duvel Moordgat. How can we take over all devices and lock them down? How does that actually happen? What I have today here, this is my device, where I will be doing the hack from. And actually, we have a victim device. There's a second camera on the victim device. I'll start it. It's a Windows laptop. I can do this with a macOS laptop as well, Linux, anything. This is an out-of-date device. It's not fully up to date. It didn't have his latest security updates. Now, what I will do is I'm going to I'm connected on the same network. There are different ways to do this. We can also do it through email, but we want to have a way to deliver what we call a payload, the virus, actually. So we're on the same network as the victim, possibly by hacking the Wi-Fi or walking in and plugging it in my laptop in the wall, and I'm going to see, hey, who is present on this network? I know at this specific IP address, this person is present. I'm going to look, hey, what kind of device is this? Actually, I've done a scan before just to save some time. And I can see, hey, this is definitely a Microsoft device. This is a Windows device, and it has some ports open. Now, that's not a bad thing. We are the internet. We're all interconnected. We do need to do some stuff on the internet, but very specifically, there's a vulnerable service running on this laptop. It's a very famous one. It was used in the WannaCry attacks, called Samba. And the mistake in this protocol is that it has two versions, version 1 and version 2, and you can trick the system to bypass some controls if you send a specific payload that abuses the switching of the versions. So to do this, I will open some software, and I will actually craft the virus to actually take over this machine. So what I will do is I'm going to use the Eternal Blue virus. That's the one that was used in the one. They all have these funny names. So I will use the virus. I will say specific kind of targets. Then I will select our host that I want to send it to. Normally, you would actually send a lot of these viruses to all the machines in the network. That's also how they get spread. But it's we want to keep everything stable today, so we're going to do only one, and then we are going to say, hey, when it works, call me back. Okay, exploit. What it's now going to do is it's going to send these weird wrong packets, and it's going to try to take over this machine. Sometimes it doesn't work on the first try. The software is not meant in any way to do this, but it'll try to bypass these security controls. Let's see. The moment we get in one of these devices, nothing is going to happen. So it will not be visible here, but I will have a line of code on my screen giving me the power to do whatever I want. I hope this will finish quickly. Normally it doesn't take too long. Okay, first fail. We'll just automatically try that again. Let's see what happens. Okay, sending the payload again. Come on. And from this point, what you would actually do in a virus is actually the moment you've exploited the machine, you will be able to start programs or encrypt all the data that's on there, or actually turn on the webcam, which is one of the most frightening ones that you would typically demo in a setup like this. Okay. Good demos always fail. So, okay. Let's try one more time, and then we'll go to the next demo. We have enough of those. So again, the software is not meant to work in this way. So let's see. I'm trying to wake it up a bit. Come on. I'll just open it, the Explorer window, just to see if it is maybe a bit stuck. Okay. It's a bit of a pity that this demo didn't work. I have a famous example of this, that you can actually make something pop up on the screen, and you can take over the webcam. If you ever see me in live, please ask me, then I can show this to you in person. So if we go back to the slides, then I think the most important thing to take away from RCs. You've seen one happen at Duvel Mortiat yesterday, but the most important thing is that it's very easy to prevent those. It's just update your machine always, and that's the main thing. If there's one thing you take away from this this demonstration, is please update all your software all the time. It's annoying, it costs money, it takes time, but it's the best solution to prevent yourself from people like me. There's a huge list online of all software vulnerabilities that you can exploit. Granted, they don't always work, but there's a huge list, and it's very important that you quickly update all your versions all the time. So, as a next one, okay, this one didn't work. I don't, let's say, for example, I don't have any network access. I can try to do something else. Steph has already shown, or actually told you about this one. It's actually the one they also did at Fact Checkers, and it looks a bit like this. This famous saying around the subject: if it quacks like a keyboard, it's a keyboard. It's actually devices being disguised as something else. So it looks like a USB stick, but it's actually a keyboard. What you see on the screen now are actually keyboards. Very weird. The left one is one you can buy somewhere in the US. Company makes them. Government will definitely track you. On the right one is actually one I made years ago. You will plug it in. This is actually the new upgraded version I made. You can plug it in, and you actually can type out an entire virus through this way. Takes about 3 seconds. So there is no vulnerability needed. This works on any device. This is a more fancy one. Don't buy this again, but it gives me the possibility to have a bit more flexibility. Imagine that you leave your device unlocked. So that's a requirement of this demo. That you see a lot at work as well. People leave their device unlocked. I'm gonna say, why is that possible? People can, doesn't matter. People can just pass by, plug in the USB. I have a cable just to make it a bit more easy. And the moment I hit this button, it'll behave as a keyboard, and it will type out a password. It will download the payload, have it installed it. I unplug the USB port. I'm gone. It now connected to my machine, and I can do whatever I want. I can log this device. I can start things on this device. I can do whatever I want. There's no vulnerability needed. You just left your laptop unlocked. So it's very important, and that's immediately as well what we want to showcase here. Is it's very important that you lock your device. This is a very cheap attack to showcase. What we really recommend at work, play the coffee cooker game. Coffee cooker translates to pastries in English, where if you can type out coffee cooker in the Slack channel or in the Teams channel, you buy everybody coffee cooker. It's a very fun game. We should keep it lighthearted, but it trains everybody, even in an office setting, to log their device. Because if you don't train it at home, if you don't train it at the office, you will not do it at a conference where it actually matters. A conference or out and about at a coffee shop, for example, where it actually matters. So, very good game to play. Now, also a very famous attack. It's called man in the middle. They all have these catchy names. A man in the middle attack, and I'll change my setup a bit here, is when it's the typical coffee shop example. Hey, you are on the network. I want to see what you are doing. Now, granted, a lot changed in the last 10 years, and it's actually quite easy to prevent you from this. So you don't need a VPN. You don't need anything special. A lot of the traffic you see today on the internet, almost all, is encrypted in some way. Now, for this encryption to work well, and there are a lot of small details, a lot of small security checks that need to properly happen, you need to make sure that you have an up-to-date browser. So I've preloaded this machine with an out-of-date version of a browser. Doesn't matter which browser it is, just an out-of-date one. And I'll actually use this one. And you can normally see the screen. Okay, just making sure that I have everything properly connected. And I will make sure that I'm on the same network, and we'll try to take over that device's internet. connection and see what we can do there. Okay. Can I switch the screen sharing to the other screen? Sorry. Okay. Perfect. Voila. Okay. So I'm now on the same network as this device. And if, for example, we go to the HLN website, let's see if everything is properly connected. Okay, I will start taking over the traffic. It uses a technique. It's actually shouting across the network, hey, I have the internet behind me, please connect to me. And once I've done this, I will set some things up. Perfect. I now have successfully taken over the traffic of this device. You see a lot is coming on the screen. Actually, for the ones who don't know HLN is the most popular website in Belgium. I actually used to work for HLN. They didn't do anything wrong. This is something you can do with the New York Times as well. But I know the website, so I can do some extra fun things. I now have, because this browser is not up to date, have control over this device, over this computer's internet connection. You can see that at the left top, it says not secured in Dutch. Normally, with an up-to-date browser, it will always protect you and will never allow you to go to that not secured part. Now, if this would be a sensitive website, a bank or something, I can see what credentials you're providing. I can take over anything. One of the more fun examples to actually show you is, let's say I don't like this article that's being displayed. I want to insert a more fun one. Great. If I now refresh the site, because I can inject, I have full control of this device. If I refresh the site, you will see that there's now a new article being presented at the top of HLN. It's about our offices. We hope that this is true. We hope that the XFA offices will be overrun, asking for the cyber contract and XFA product after this webinar. But as you can see, I can also inject a command to take over your device, launch these attacks we've shown before through your browser. And this is why it's really important that you use an up-to-date browser. Because if you have an up-to-date browser, this is actually not possible. So just remember, all the traffic today on the internet is encrypted. It's very important that it is. You don't need a special VPN. If you use an up-to-date browser, you will be fine. But please keep your browser up to date. As a last demo I will give, it's a fun one. For example, my first attack, unfortunately, it's a very cool one, so it didn't work. But there's a lot of other things, actually, a lot of other ways to get into a device. Let's say, oh, my device is up to date. Let's say I'm not using the internet at all. Let's say I want to, I've now unplugged it. Let's say I want to get data of this device. We've already established that you should lock your device. So we can actually do one better, and we can completely shut it off. You leave your unencrypted, and this word is quite important. You leave your unencrypted device somewhere in a bag at a conference, somewhere where it's unattended. But the important thing is an unencrypted device. And then actually what you can do is you can, I think I have one more slide where I can actually show this. This is a very typical laptop. I think 6 screws, and you can take out the SD drive, so the hard drive. This will just come with this dongle, will just become one giant USB drive. There's nothing holding me back. There's no password. There is nothing holding me back, because the drive itself is not encrypted. The operating system on it says, hey, if you boot this, please ask a password, but the drive itself is not encrypted. It's very easy to encrypt something, but I'll show you later. But if you just leave your unencrypted device somewhere, you can take out the drive and you can do whatever you want. Now, there's a more fun attack that you can do, and it's there's a piece of software that you can use. I just plugged it now in the USB drive, and if I boot up this device, and if I start my device off that USB drive, it'll replace a piece of the operating system with one of my own, and it will remove the password of your drive. So we will start it from there. It will happen fully automatically. Imagine this is the scene in the Hollywood movie where you where it's night, you break in, you want to get in a device within an office. You plug this in, you boot the PC from that, and it will now boot without requiring a password. Old machine, so it takes a while. But yeah, I'll already start talking about what encryption means. It sounds very fancy. My co-founder is a expert on this, but it's actually really easy today. It doesn't have any performance hits. You can find it in your settings. So on Mac, it's called File Vault, and on Windows, it's called Device Encryption. You can just enable it if you want. It will it will ask you some recovery methods, and it will fully encrypt the device and prevent any of these attacks. So it's asking a password right now. Just a joke, if I enter, it'll actually fully log me in without a password that I need. Voilà. These are my demos for today. Thank you for showing me. Thank you for giving me your time. Just some key takeaways. Use password manager, keep everything up to date, lock your device, and encrypt your device as well. This is very easy now for you personally. Just a small plug about what we do with XFA is XFA makes it possible that you enforce this across your complete company on all devices. Device of auditors, freelancers, partners, everybody, without taking any control away from them in the process. So if you want to learn more about XFA, please stay tuned. But then we will continue with the talk of Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars, for this very nice demos. It was very interesting, I think. But we'll go over to a little bit more boring stuff, but I'll keep it short to keep everyone's attention. So how do we prevent this within a full company? We need a strategic framework to this and for this. And you know, companies used to do this in a very different way. Companies thought that they were building some kind of castle where the protection came from building walls, which were actually firewalls. And they kind of thought, like, if we build these firewalls and everything that stays inside that network surrounded by these walls will be safe. This kind of turned out to be more of a bubble than a castle. Because over the years, we wanted different devices. We got mobile phones, we got tablets, we got people working remotely from all places. Could be home, but could also be the coffee shop somewhere, or any place at all. And we kind of had to make holes in our walls in this castle. And if it turns out to be a bubble, then our bubble kind of bursted. So luckily, we kind of moved towards the idea of a cloud, where basically everything was just available over the internet. You could connect from anywhere, use any device, And most companies today use a lot of like what we call SaaS applications, or software as a service applications, who live natively in the cloud. This approach still works for when you have a company network, but thinking in a way such as cloud applications work makes it much easier to approach this. And if we approach security in the same way, if we embrace this new reality, it makes much more sense. So then we come to the strategy, which has been dubbed Zero Trust. Zero Trust has also been used by a lot of vendors in a very marketing, as a very strong marketing term, and it doesn't always mean the same. But let me go to the basics of it and the idea behind it. So with Zero Trust, we're basically saying, do not trust anything on the network. What remains are obviously our users. Making sure that the user who's connecting to your data or to your application is who they say they are is an important step. So this is what we call authentication, and the identity of the user becomes important. Obviously, the second pillar is the device. The device the user is using is also an important part of it. With some protections on that device, you can make sure that nothing goes wrong, as Lars showed during the demos as well. The network is still important, but we do not trust it. We do want that everything that goes through the network is encrypted and cannot be like intercepted, read, or changed along the way. On the other side, we have the applications running on a server somewhere. Could be in the cloud, could be still in the data center. We still want some protections at the application level, obviously, to protect the data that is contained within these applications. There are two more pillars, which I'm not going to focus on very much during this talk today, but it's automation and analytics, just to make sure that the security approach scales properly within big companies. You do need some sort of automation, and you do need analytics to cover all your controls in all the other pillars. Going to the first pillar of the users, as I said earlier, the objective there is to get secure authentication. You want to know that the user who's connecting is indeed who it says it is. Easy ways to do this within a company are using a good identity provider, and if possible, move towards single sign-on, where one identity provider is used to access all your applications. In this way, the user only needs to have one password, and you can easily grant access and revoke access at one stage. To further protect this authentication, you can add multi-factor authentication. As Lars said, this is the best protection when users choose bad passwords, and we all know users will choose bad passwords. We can even further enhance that use of bad passwords by using a password manager. We can hope that users will actually use better passwords. So these are the best tools to get your secure authentication goal there. So the second pillar is the devices. As Lars already said a few times, most importantly, keep your device up to date. This means keep your operating system up to date, keep your browser up to date. These are the tools that you use most to connecting to companies' data. If you can keep these up to date, you're already preventing a lot of the risks. Disk encryption, Lars showed the demo. If the disk is not encrypted, when you lose your device, when it's stolen, there is nothing stopping the thief from accessing your data. A fourth thing that I want to add are backups. In case you have something happening, if you have a ransomware going over all your devices, having good backups somewhere else stored, it's going to be easy to just wipe out all the devices and reinstall from the backup. So the tools that are available here are enforced checks on endpoints, and this is exactly what we do with XFA as well, to make sure that all these devices are covered and that these basic checks are actually validated. You can also use some sort of device management, but it's very hard within a company to actually make sure that all devices are managed. You will always have some freelancers or external partners that will still connect to your data with their own devices. And another tip is keep data in the cloud. It's much harder to fully encrypt all your data using ransomware when some of the data is stored in a SharePoint environment or a Google Drive or any other cloud provider, and you get the benefit of the backups that they take. The third pillar is the network. As I said earlier, you want to have all network traffic encrypted. And luckily, over the last years, we've come a long way, and most websites, most internet traffic is actually encrypted. If you make sure your browser is up to date, also your device enforces that that traffic is encrypted and will warn you if that is not the case. There's one side note, and that is the DNS, which is kind of the phone book of the internet, where the domain name that you use is translated to a computer readable IP address. These queries to that phone book are not yet encrypted all the time. It is possible to use this setting in your browser, but browsers are going to be more enforcing this more in the future, and this is going to be the last step to make sure that all network traffic is encrypted. So finally, the last pillar that I want to talk about is the applications pillar. Here, the objective should be isolate your applications, make sure that when you're in one application, you can't immediately hop to another application. And you want to make sure that the applications that you use from vendors that you buy as a company, that these are secure applications and that you have kind of vetted these vendors. So this isolation you kind of get from SaaS applications by default, just because they are made by different vendors and are isolated by default. When you look at vendors for the applications you use, you can vet them, you can review their security and privacy efforts. Usually they have some documents for that. Maybe you can even check if they have a certificate, ISO 27001 or SOC 2 or famous security certificates. If they have them, it at least means that they do some effort in keeping everything secure. So what I also said, keep your software up to date, is also, this is not only related to your operating system and your browser, it is for all software that you use, it is the best protection against attacks on that software. And we all hate updates. We do hate updates too, but it's still the best way. If you build software yourself, obviously you need to do some extra stuff. You want to implement a secure development lifecycle. To learn more about that, I can really recommend OWASP's guidelines around this. They have a lot of resources that can help you build a secure development lifecycle. Also there, if you use libraries from third parties, make sure to keep them up to date. So once more, with XFA, we actually can help you mostly with that second pillar, the devices. We perform these essential security checks during login into a company's application. That way, you're sure that every device that is actually used for work is protected. You can also help. You can also use this tool to help your compliance efforts if you want to become ISO 27001 or SOC 2 compliant as a company yourself. I'm going to hand it over back to Steph.
Right, after the position switch, let's get back to the initial theme, modern cybersecurity, obviously. And if we're looking for a correct definition of modern cybersecurity, we can surely state that it is the combination of different actions. It's not only the device security, as we've also discussed in the first part of the webinar, it's certainly also the human part. And there are different factors leading to the combination of actions. In that sense, what's good is closing the front door of your house if the side door is still open. It's the same thing in cybersecurity, obviously. So it's a mindset. It's all mindset. Everyone needs to cooperate on that theme of modern cybersecurity, and it's an everyday kind of a thing. Again, both professionally as personally. Let's say that you get into a car and it's an insured car, but it does not have brakes. That's a stupid story, because in the end it will go wrong. So In that sense, we really preach for the fact that you need to take proactive actions as well as a reactive approach. And that is what we with CyberContract do. And applying such a strategy in modern cybersecurity, that automatically results in being a cyber resilient company. Whenever an incident would hit you, and surely it will happen, you have the strength, you have the power, you have the knowledge, you have the procedures, the policies, and everything in place to overcome that incident. In the proactive approach, we see some different steps. So we're looking at prevention, the steps that you can take yourself, awareness creation, safety culture, company-wide knowledge sharing, and so on. Those are preventive steps that you can take on your own. Secondly, digital footprint, really important. Scanning both externally, internally on a non-invasive way. We actually already draw out your digital footprint, and it will give a lot of information, valuable information of which digital doors you have closed and which open, and it will give enough information to create an action plan. That action plan can go further deep dive into the technical, the functional, even the legal stuff that you need to comply with. And we've got a network of trusted partners around us, like XFA, obviously, that are able to assist you with the necessary expertise on any of the subject. We do that based on the NIST framework, but in the end, it's always the same kind of a story. And then after the proactive efforts that you take, there is a reactive story as well. So whenever things go wrong, you want to be helped. And that is what our policy, our insurance policy is all about. When things go wrong, you want to be helped. We do that very solution-oriented. First of all, incident management, the first moments after being hacked, those are the moments that really count. Those are the moments that really matter. You make a phone call to the 24/7 hotline. They basically do the incident management. They dispatch to the IT forensic services, legal expertise, in order to help you to overcome that incident as soon as possible. It's all about business continuity in the end. And whenever the incident is under control, you can go for the recovery phase. And that's where the financial part kicks in, like the profit loss that you had, all the costs that you needed to make, all the expertise, all the investigations, and so on and so on. That is in the recovery phase of that policy. So that is our total approach. Right, let's go for a wrap-up. For that, I secretly invited my colleagues back to the table again, talking about a position switch.
Yes, I think what we just wanted to add indeed there, next to the offer that CyberContract gives everybody, we are offering everybody that attended the webinar as well a free devices diagnose. Just use our product free for the next 3 months, unlimited. Find out, hey, these devices I didn't know about. In this way, these devices are insecure. And after that, if we've proven our value, please continue using it. And that's a nice value to walk away with.
Absolutely. And 2 is better than 1. So by CyberContract, we offer a free external diagnose. Again, for anyone attending this webinar, it's the same email address that you can use. But additionally, the most motivational, original post on LinkedIn about this webinar is able to win 2 hours free consulting of our cybersecurity coach.
I think that's a fun idea to the post.
Excited.
We have some minutes left. We thought it would be great to open the floor for some questions. If you have a question now, please put them in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer them. So yeah, there were some questions before, so you can fire the first one, Stefan.
So we have a question in regards to passwords. How often do you recommend updating passwords?
That's a very good question. Actually, we don't recommend changing your passwords too often. Companies used to do this and enforce password changes very often, but this just led to bad password choices by people. They just changed one number or things like that, and that is actually a very bad approach. Also, NIST doesn't recommend this anymore. The only reason that we would recommend a password manager is in case you suspect a breach or there is an actual breach. If you know that the application where you use that password was breached, do change your password. The website that Lars showed during his demo, Have I Been Pwned, can help you actually in warning you if your email was in a breach and that passwords were involved. Of course, for preventive measures, if you're not sure, you can still do some hygiene and change your passwords. But as long as you use unique passwords over your different applications that you use and the different websites, you choose long passwords, random passwords, preferably using a password manager, then I wouldn't recommend changing your password too often.
Thank you. We have another question. One of the people has an older iMac at home, which is used for work. Is that a safe option?
Yeah, I would typically not recommend. Depends how old you say old. Some people say 2 years is old, but then it will still be supported by updates. But indeed, if it's very old and it's not supporting the latest updates anymore, so very quick Google search will get you that information. That's actually quite a risk. If you type in the specific version you're using and type in CVE after it, you'll find a list of vulnerabilities that you can find. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's expensive, but it's very important that you use an up-to-date device. I would also recommend, if you're buying a new device, take this in consideration. An Apple device would typically get your 7 years of updates. Also for resale value, it's pretty nice. But some other devices will only take 2 or 3 years. So take this in account as well. If you buy a new device, how long will this device be supported? Yeah.
If I may add to that, it's the same comparison with the door. The old doors with a very simple key, you can break in easily. The keys and the locks of today, that's a totally different story, I guess. So it's the same applies to the infrastructure.
Thank you, gentlemen. There's another question concerning cyber incidents. Given its certainty, how do you see the future in insurance, in cyber insurance?
It's a good one. Well, we need to be able to keep the landscape of cyber incidents insurable. And for that, we all have to take those proactive measurements. It's, again, the same comparison as with the car. You have to do everything in order to prevent an accident. And that is exactly what you do in cybersecurity as well. You take any kind of a measure, you keep up to date with all those measures, because whatever hackers do, they don't have those ethics, they don't have the moral walls that they walk against. No, they just keep on going. So they're always a step ahead. And in that sense, it's very, very important to keep up with all the updates, with all the infrastructure, as Larsen, I guess, mentioned. So just go for a full-fledged cybersecurity strategy. It doesn't mean that for a small company, it has to be exactly the same as for a big one. Just choose wisely what works for your organization.
Cool.
Okay, thank you. I propose we do a wrap up. Maybe you can mention that we will send an email.
Perfect. Yes. So again, the questions that we didn't get to, will provide you. We'll answer by email. I think this was for today. We will send you an email with the information we've provided today, with the slides of today. We made them in a nice handout format, as well with the recording. And please, as well, just a reminder, make a nice post so you maybe can win the offer from Steph.
Yep.
But thank you for your time today, and hoping to speak to you later.